Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. This is Omar with Community Income Tax, and we're real excited. The 2017 software is out for both online and desktop. So we want to get started and showing you how to do tax returns in the software. Um, we're going to start with some of the practice returns that are available on the Taxwise support site. So in order to get there, what you want to do is make sure you go to our support site. This is the URL that you need to follow. It's my.joincit.com/support. When you get there, under the software tab, there is a video training section, and this shows you some interfaces like templates and print settings that you can watch provided by Taxwise that are helpful. But I think in order to get into the software and comfortable with it, you need to start practicing returns. And the way to do that is there's 3 different levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and even for business. So you have tons of practice returns here you can try. So in this case, I'm going to start with the very easiest one as beginner. When you click on that, you'll have your scenario, and we can go through this scenario step by step and see how to prepare this return in Taxwise Online. Um, so here's our situation here. This is our first scenario. This is for John Hammonds. He's not married, has no children, received health insurance through his employer for the entire year. John began paying back his student loans this year. He'd like to know if he could deduct $250 in interest he paid, and he wants to e-file the return. And this is his PIN 10,001. He would like to receive a paper check if he gets a refund. Obviously, the last part in here doesn't really matter, but everything else does. So let's go ahead into Taxwise Online and start preparing this return and see how we do. So the first thing is but before I do that, let me just go back here. So this is the dashboard. At the top you can open return or start return. I like to usually either click on that if I'm doing a new return, or you can go here and create a new return this way and sort by the returns. So let's go ahead and put in if you're following along in the scenario, it's requesting, it's got a picture of his social right here, and it shows 101 and then XXX, so you make up the rest of the numbers. So what we're going to do is put 101 and make up the rest of the numbers 555555. You have an options to go to forms or interview. In this case, I'm going to go to forms. This is a simple enough return. It isn't going to take much. We'll have other tutorials for interview as well. Okay, so now that we are in Taxwise and starting to prepare this return, it's actually a pretty nice screen and easy to view. You have your refund monitor, which you can collapse or open again. You have your loaded forms, and you can also control if you want a bigger view or smaller view of the return. There's another cool option here is if you hold down your control button on your keyboard, and if you have a scrollable mouse on the scroll wheel, if you scroll away, it makes it, you kind of zoom out, and if you scroll forward, you can zoom in. So it's a lot of customization that you can use, but I do think the default view is probably the best. But those of you who like different views, you can adjust it the way you want depending on your personal preference. Also, if you don't have the mouse wheel, you can hold down the control and press the plus or minus button on your keyboard. So with Taxwise, on the left side you have green forms and red forms and black forms. The red ones require input. That means they're incomplete. If you hover over it, you can see it shows incomplete. If it's green, it's complete. If it's black, that means it's not used. So we're going to go ahead and start this return. Obviously, every time you start a return with Taxwise, you're going to start with a main information sheet. A lot of the information that's in the main information sheet will automatically flow into the tax returns right away. So you want to make sure you fill in everything through there. And it's real easy to navigate. So let's go ahead and start filling out their information. So John is his first name. Initial is W. Wesley Hammonds. You can hit tab to scroll from next required field to another, or a quick shortcut would be to hold down the control key on your keyboard, keep that held down, and push the E button. This will take you directly to the next required field, so it makes it that much quicker. So I just clicked control E. Now if I go back, let's say back to the first name, and now I hit control E, it takes me right back to the address. So I have to put the address line here, 623 Miller Road, and the zip code there is 30165. Next, control E, it's going to require the date of birth. Now notice how I have a primary phone, but it's not a required field. I'm going to go back here and put the phone number, 706-555-1001. I try to keep it a practice to put as much contact info for my clients as possible. Always helps. Date of birth. His date of birth is September 25th, 1978. September 25th, 1978. Control E again. Occupation, bookkeeper. Let's hit Control E once more. Are you excluding Puerto Rico? No, we are not. Control E. Alright, now it's taking us to filing status and exemption. Now, he is single, so let's go ahead and hit Control E again. And it takes us down here to the state information. We are going to say he actually lives in Georgia, so he does have Georgia income. So with Taxwise Online, you don't have to install any additional modules. No matter what state you put in, will automatically populate. As you see, it's 2017, so it's not yet available, so we'll just use it for reference. So right now, we'll put Georgia. Type of return, we're going to go with e-file only. Next down here is Fee Collect Protection Plus. Let's skip all that. Self-select, yellow pin. I went ahead and I pre-filled some of this info in my tax form defaults. This is going to be a practitioner, so it's not going to require any of these. So just make sure when you scroll to this part, you always have your PIN and check this box, so you don't have to do the 4868 and have to put in the AGI and PIN. You're a professional, you can use the practitioner PIN. The next step is the taxpayer's PIN. I guess in this case, John requested that we use 10001, and we will do that and put today's date, which is, in this case, 11/30/2017. Okay. So the next step would be, now I'm scrolling back and forth, and just see I can use a combination of commands here. I can, if you like Control E, certainly keep using it because it'll keep taking you to the next required field, or you can just scroll and kind of get an idea of what you're looking at, especially if you have multi-select buttons in here. Let's just say that they did provide us a social security card. But that's not on the option, so we'll just put does not have any of that. Identity proofing, that's another level that you have to do, so we're going to check this box. Since we have a government ID and we have a social, let's keep going. Third party designee, I'm just going to put no here. And my prepare information already populated because I already set that in tax form defaults. If you need to check your tax form default, you can do that as well and see, make sure you have all that filled out. The more information you put into your tax form default, the easier things are going to be for you. So let's just take another glance back on this practice return. So right now in the main info screen, I already filled out his name, social, date of birth, address, all of that information. They have one W-2 and they have student loan interest, and they also had health insurance. So he received health insurance through his employer for the entire year. Okay, let's go back here and make sure we get that put in. If you go here, you can see it in red, ACA page 1. Did they receive insurance through the marketplace? No. Was a taxpayer granted market exposure exemption? No. And they had minimum insurance coverage all 12 months. So once I check these boxes, now it turned green, it's complete. We can go back to our scenario. What is left here? Okay, we have he paid his student loan this year, which would 250 in interest. So with Taxwise, there's a few ways that you can input the data that you're trying to add up on the return. In this case, for student loan interest adjustment, you can scroll down into 1040. You know where it goes. It goes under student loan interest and deduction. See how it has a green? That means it's calculated field. So if I click on it, click the triangle, there is a link to another form option, and it takes you to worksheet 2. If I click on that, it takes me to student interest paid in 2017. I can put in the amount, adds up the total. I'm done. I can go back to wherever I want. It's just as easy. The one thing I want to point out here in Taxwise that we have to make things easier for you, instead of typing in the forms directly in, for something simple like student loan and incomes and things that don't require a whole lot of data that the IRS requires, you can just use the worksheet. So you have the 1040 worksheet. If you type in WK and add a form, you have Social Security, other income worksheet, foreign income worksheet, depreciation, excess, and you'll find your way through these and see which way you use them most effectively. But I want to point out that's where we get a lot of questions that where do I do this? A lot of them are found in the worksheets. Let's go back to this return. We have a W-2 for John. So how do we input a W-2? Well, you can always go plus W-2, and right here I can add it. Let's say I don't want to do it this way, I want to do it on the 1040. I can go to the 1040, page 1, go scroll down to income, wages. If I click here, click on link another form, click on new, it shows you all the different forms that could go on that line, with W-2 being the most common. Now we go and it looks just like a W-2. I put in the employer ID number. What is the employee ID number here? It is 01. Let's just put 1111. I calculated the field for me. Employer name, if you need some time, go ahead and key that in. Westminster Accounting. There's their address. His wages were 38,521.43. Now it auto calculates the rest of the field. Very common feature with most softwares. And everything looks good. We can go to line 12, put DD, the amount is 8315.34. Also had state income. Let's go here. State wages were 38 exactly, and then we put in a 2155.18. Going back here, this is the W-2 I was inputting, and here's the numbers for that. There was nothing in the local wages, everything else was blank. Now going back to John's return here, I can look at my forms tree, everything is in green. The forms that I did not use are in black. If you want to delete a form, you can click on it, click OK. That's one way to do it. I'm not using Schedule A, and if you don't use them, they just don't. They just sit there for you as a loaded form, but they do not affect the return in any way. The only time that they're active in the return is if they're either green or red. So this completes this scenario, number 1. Pretty simple return, and hopefully everybody was able to follow along, and then we'll see you for another scenario soon.